Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're laser focused on something absolutely fundamental for navigating the world of business, especially if you're, building something, negotiation.
Right.
We've taken a deep dive into some seriously insightful material. Think of it as the distilled wisdom you need, and we've pulled out 7 key areas that can really make a difference in how you approach and, well, close deals.
That's right. This isn't about abstract theory. It's really about giving you practical insights you can actually use.
Yeah.
We've sifted through the complexities to bring you the core principles that separate effective negotiators, the ones who create value from those who might be, well, leaving opportunities on the table.
Exactly. So for you, the listener who wants to get smart on this quickly and thoroughly without getting lost in the weeds, we're going to unpack 7 dynamic aspects of negotiation that are crucial for entrepreneurial success. We'll be looking at 1, embracing the unpredictable deal landscape. 2, the power of the learn, adapt, influence cycle. 3, how preparation truly meets real-time awareness.
A big one.
Point 4, cultivating emotional agility for negotiation wins. 5, navigating those critical tipping points. 6, the art of not just finding agreement, but learning from every single deal. And 7, developing the mindset of a negotiation master, ready to get started.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into the first one, embracing the unpredictable deal landscape. What's really interesting here is that no matter how much you prepare, every negotiation has its own twists and turns. Things rarely go exactly according to plan.
Okay, let's dig into that. Beyond the obvious, what's the real advantage of truly accepting that unpredictability is like just part of the negotiation process?
Well, for one, it significantly boosts your ability to adapt. When those inevitable, unexpected issues pop up, you'll be much better equipped to respond effectively, which, often leads to more favorable outcomes. It also helps manage expectations and reduces frustration. If you anticipate that the path might not be straight, you're less likely to be thrown off balance. And perhaps a less obvious benefit is that it can actually fuel creativity. When you're not locked into a rigid plan, you're more open to finding innovative and sometimes surprising solutions.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the pitfalls if someone goes into a negotiation with a completely fixed mindset, not acknowledging that things might deviate?
That's where you can run into trouble. You risk getting stuck, completely fixated on your initial strategy, and unable to pivot when reality doesn't align, potentially leading to a stalemate. You might also miss out on valuable opportunities. By not being open to new information or changing dynamics, you could overlook beneficial alternatives or compromises.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it creates unnecessary stress. Trying to force a fluid situation into a rigid mold is a recipe for pressure.
So how do companies that are really good at this, let's say successful U.S. companies, how do they approach this inherent unpredictability? What are some of their key strategies?
A common approach is scenario planning. They actively develop multiple potential negotiation scenarios to prepare for a range of possible outcomes, not just the one they expect.
Okay.
Another key strategy is empowering their negotiation teams, giving the people on the front lines the flexibility and authority to make decisions during discussions allows for real-time adaptation to unforeseen developments.
Right. Flexibility.
And finally, a strong focus on understanding the underlying interests of all parties, rather than just sticking to initial positions. This interest-based approach allows for much more flexible solutions when the unexpected occurs.
And on the flip side, what are some common mistakes you see competitors in the U.S. making when they don't really embrace this unpredictable side of negotiations?
Over-reliance on rigid scripts is a big one. Some companies equip their negotiators with very detailed scripts they're unwilling or, frankly, unable to deviate from, which severely limits their ability to adapt.
Yeah, I can see that.
Another frequent mistake is a lack of robust contingency plans. Failing to consider alternative outcomes leaves them vulnerable when the negotiation takes an unexpected turn. And a critical error is ignoring new information that emerges during the negotiation. Being unwilling to listen and adjust based on new insights can lead to missed opportunities for mutually beneficial agreements.
Can you give us a quick, maybe real-world example to illustrate this point?
Sure. Imagine a U.S. software company negotiating a contract with a new client. Their initial plan is to sell a perpetual software license.
Okay.
However, during the discussion, the client strongly expresses a preference for a subscription-based model due to their budgeting constraints. A company that embraces unpredictability would explore different subscription options, perhaps even a hybrid model, to find a solution that works for both sides.
Right. Adapt.
A more rigid competitor, stuck on the perpetual license, might simply lose the deal, just like that.
So for our listener who's looking to build their business, what's the key takeaway here? How can they apply this understanding of unpredictability to their own negotiations?
Go into every negotiation with a well-thought-out plan, absolutely, but be mentally prepared and willing to deviate from that plan when necessary. The real skill lies in being agile and responsive to how things actually unfold. Listen actively to what the other party is saying. Be open to new information as it arises. This adaptability will allow you to seize unexpected opportunities and navigate challenges much more effectively, significantly increasing your chances of a successful outcome.
All right, let's move on to the second key area, which sounds like a dynamic process. The power of the learn, adapt, influence cycle. What exactly does this cycle entail?
It's essentially a continuous loop where you actively learn during a negotiation, use that learning to adapt your strategy and approach in real time, and through that adaptation, you become better able to influence the direction of the conversation and ultimately the outcome.
Okay.
It's not just about gathering information, it's about using it strategically as you go.
What are the clear advantages of consciously engaging in this learn, adapt, influence cycle during negotiations?
Well, the first major benefit is continuous improvement. By actively paying attention and learning during each negotiation, you naturally refine your strategies and become a more effective negotiator over time. Simple as that.
Right. Practice makes perfect, sort of.
Exactly. Secondly, it fosters stronger relationships. Demonstrating adaptability and a genuine willingness to understand the other party's perspective builds trust and can lead to more collaborative and longer-lasting partnerships.
Makes sense.
And thirdly, it can lead to greater deal value. By adapting to the other party's needs and subtly influencing the conversation, you're just better positioned to achieve more favorable terms.
And what's the downside if you ignore this cycle? What happens if you go into a negotiation and you're not really open to learning and adapting as things progress?
You risk your negotiation skills becoming stagnant. Failing to learn from each experience limits your growth and effectiveness in future deals.
Right. You repeat mistakes.
Exactly. You can also inadvertently damage relationships. A rigid and unyielding approach can alienate the other party, making future interactions much more difficult. And ultimately, you're likely to achieve suboptimal outcomes. An inability to adapt and to influence based on what you learn will almost certainly lead to less favorable agreements.
So what kind of strategies do successful U.S. companies put in place to really leverage this learn, adapt, influence cycle in their negotiations?
A key practice is conducting post-negotiation debriefs. After every significant negotiation, they take the time to thoroughly review what worked well, what didn't, and what could be improved for the future. This is a crucial learning step.
The postmortem.
Kind of, yeah. Another strategy is what I call iterative proposal development. Instead of presenting a single non-negotiable offer, they often engage in discussions, actively solicit feedback, and adapt their proposals based on what they learn.
Okay, so it's more fluid.
Very much so. And finally, a major emphasis on active listening and insightful questioning. They train their negotiators to truly listen to the other party, ask probing questions to understand their underlying interests, and then use that information to adapt their approach and influence the discussion.
And where do you often see competitors stumble when it comes to this crucial aspect of learning and adaptation?
This missing feedback is a common mistake. Some negotiators fail to actively listen to or genuinely consider the other party's concerns or counterarguments, thereby missing valuable opportunities to adapt their strategy.
Just hearing what they want to hear.
Pretty much. Another pitfall is simply repeating past mistakes. Without a conscious process for learning, companies can find themselves using ineffective tactics again and again, and a tendency to focus solely on their own talking points rather than actively listening. That severely limits their ability to learn and, consequently, to influence the negotiation effectively.
Can you give us a practical example of this cycle in action during a negotiation?
Sure. Imagine a U.S. marketing agency pitching a new campaign to a client. Initially, they propose a very broad general marketing approach.
Okay.
However, through active listening and asking clarifying questions, they learned that the client's primary goal is to reach a very specific and niche demographic.
Okay. New info.
Right. Based on this new understanding, the agency immediately adapts its proposed strategy to focus on highly targeted tactics, and is then able to influence the client by clearly demonstrating a deep understanding of their core need. A less adaptive competitor might simply keep pushing their initial broad approach and ultimately miss the mark.
So for our listener who's building their business, what's the practical advice on how they can apply this learn, adapt, influence cycle to their negotiations?
Approach every single negotiation as a valuable learning opportunity. Be a keen observer. Pay attention not just to what is said, but also how it's said and the underlying motivations.
Body language, tone.
All of it. Be an incredibly active listener. And be prepared to adjust your strategy and tactics in real time based on the new information you gather. By consciously engaging in this continuous cycle of learning and adapting, you'll become much more effective at influencing negotiations towards mutually beneficial outcomes and building stronger, more resilient business relationships.
Let's move on to our third key point, which seems to be about striking a crucial balance. Preparation meets real-time awareness. It's not enough to just do one or the other, right?
Absolutely not. Thorough preparation provides the essential groundwork, giving you a solid understanding of your goals, your alternatives, what we sometimes call your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Right, the walkaway point.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And the landscape of the negotiation. But it's the real-time awareness, your ability to be fully present and perceptive during the negotiation itself, that allows you to truly capitalize on unexpected opportunities and navigate the nuances of the discussion. They're absolutely interconnected.
What are the concrete benefits of having both that robust preparation beforehand and being completely tuned in during the negotiation?
Well, the first is a significant boost in confidence. Knowing you've done your homework provides a solid foundation and naturally increases your confidence as you enter the negotiation.
Sure. Feels good to be prepared.
Definitely. Second, it leads to better decision-making. Your preparation helps you define your objectives and understand your leverage points, allowing you to make more informed choices when critical moments arise. And third, being prepared actually enhances your ability to identify and seize opportunities that might emerge during the negotiation. A well-prepared mind is simply better equipped to recognize and act on those unexpected possibilities.
And what are the potential downsides if you neglect either of these critical elements? What happens if you're meticulously prepared but you're not really paying attention in the moment, or vice versa?
If you go into a negotiation unprepared, you risk being caught off guard by unexpected questions, demands, or information. You might make concessions you later regret, or fail to advocate effectively for your interests. It's not good.
Flying blind.
Exactly. Conversely, if you're not fully present and aware during the negotiation, even with the best preparation, you might make poor decisions because you're not grasping the current dynamics.
Yeah.
Or you could completely miss crucial information being shared by the other party, information that could actually change your prepared strategy. It's about having the knowledge base and having your antenna up.
Got it. So what are some of the strategies that successful U.S. companies employ to effectively combine this thorough preparation with being fully aware during their negotiations?
Comprehensive research is absolutely fundamental. They invest significant time and resources in thoroughly investigating the other party, their history, their priorities, their potential constraints, as well as the broader market conditions before they even sit down at the table.
Okay.
Lots of it. Practice and role-playing are also very common. Many businesses engage in realistic practice sessions to anticipate potential scenarios, refine their responses, and ensure their team is both well-prepared and adaptable.
Like a rehearsal?
Kind of, yes.
Oh.
And finally, the use of dedicated negotiation teams with clearly defined roles can be very effective. This allows some team members to focus on the overall strategy and planned objectives, while others are specifically tasked with actively observing and listening to the nuances of the discussion in real time, picking up on verbal and nonverbal cues.
Dividing the labor. Smart. Yes. And where do you often see competitors fall short in this delicate balancing act?
Underestimating the other party is a frequent mistake. Failing to adequately research their background, their needs, and their potential alternatives can lead to significant misjudgments and missed opportunities.
Ouch.
Another common issue is sticking too rigidly to the initial plan. Some negotiators become so fixated on their pre-negotiation strategy that they fail to recognize and adapt to new information or subtly shifting dynamics during the discussion. And a lack of active listening is a significant problem. Focusing too much on presenting their own arguments without truly hearing and understanding the other party prevents them from gaining valuable insights that could inform their strategy and lead to a better outcome.
Can you give us a compelling example that really highlights the power of this combination of preparation and real-time awareness?
Certainly. Imagine a U.S. real estate developer who is meticulously preparing to negotiate the purchase of a significant piece of land. They conduct extensive due diligence on the property, its history, comparable sales, zoning regulations, the works.
Thorough.
Very. Then during the negotiation meeting, they happen to learn, almost in passing, about a potential upcoming change in local zoning laws that could dramatically increase the land's future development potential, therefore its value.
Whoa, okay. Big news.
Huge. Their initial prepared valuation might need to be significantly adjusted based on this critical new real-time information. A less aware competitor, even with some initial research, might completely miss this crucial piece of information, stick to their original offer, and either overpay significantly or miss a major opportunity to renegotiate based on this new potential.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a big difference. So for our listener who's aiming to thrive in business, what's the practical advice on how they can effectively blend thorough preparation with sharp real-time awareness in their negotiations?
Invest the necessary time and effort in thorough preparation before any significant negotiation. Understand your goals, your alternatives, and as much as you can about the other party. But when you are actually in the negotiation, make a conscious effort to remain fully present, attentive, and perceptive.
Stay awake.
Basically, yes. Be ready to continuously learn and adapt your approach based on the real-time information you are gathering. This dynamic balance between being well-prepared and highly aware is absolutely crucial for making informed decisions and ultimately achieving optimal and sustainable outcomes.
All right, let's move on to something that might seem a little less concrete, but is clearly a game changer in negotiations. Cultivating emotional agility for negotiation wins. This is all about managing our own emotional landscape, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding and effectively managing your own emotions and also being attuned to the emotions of others throughout the negotiation process. This emotional intelligence, EQ, is key to making sound decisions, building strong rapport, and ultimately achieving more successful outcomes.
What are the direct benefits of having this emotional agility when you're trying to reach an agreement in a business negotiation?
Well, the first crucial benefit is the ability to maintain calm and composure, even under pressure. Emotional control allows you to think clearly and make rational decisions, particularly in high-stakes or tense situations.
Keeping cool.
Right. Second, it significantly aids in building rapport and trust. Demonstrating patience, empathy, and understanding towards the other party can foster a more collaborative and productive atmosphere. And third, having an emotionally agile mindset can actually enhance creativity. When you're not overwhelmed by your own emotions or reacting defensively, you're more open to exploring different perspectives and finding mutually beneficial solutions that you might otherwise miss.
And what are the potential negative consequences if you lack this emotional control during a negotiation? How can letting your emotions get the better of you impact the outcome?
Oh, it can be bad. You risk making impulsive decisions that you might later regret, such as making unnecessary concessions out of frustration, or even causing a breakdown in the negotiation due to an emotional outburst.
Yeah, saying something you wish you hadn't.
Exactly. You can also severely damage relationships. Losing your temper or appearing overly impatient can alienate the other party and harm any potential for future collaboration. And finally, you could miss valuable opportunities. Emotional reactivity can cloud your judgment, preventing you from seeing potential areas of agreement or innovative solutions that might be available.
So what kind of strategies do successful U.S. companies employ to foster this emotional agility in their negotiators? How do they help their teams develop this crucial skill?
Many invest in emotional intelligence training programs for their employees, which focus on developing self-awareness, understanding their own emotions, and empathy, understanding the emotions of others.
Training helps.
It does. Another key strategy is encouraging negotiators to recognize when they need to take a break. Stepping away from a particularly intense discussion to cool down and regain perspective can be incredibly valuable in maintaining emotional control. Pretty much. And finally, emphasizing the importance of maintaining a consistently professional demeanor, even in challenging situations, signals respect and helps to keep the overall tone of the negotiation constructive.
And where do you often see negotiators stumble when it comes to managing their emotions effectively during negotiations? What are some common emotional pitfalls?
Becoming overly defensive or aggressive in response to counterarguments is a common mistake. This kind of emotional reactivity can quickly escalate conflict and derail the negotiation.
It's getting personal.
Right. Similarly, showing obvious impatience or frustration can be detrimental, as it can signal weakness or a lack of commitment to finding a mutually agreeable solution. And personalizing disagreements, taking negotiation points as personal attacks rather than focusing on the issues at hand, can lead to emotional outbursts and unproductive discussions.
Can you give us a specific example of how emotional agility can be a real game changer in a challenging negotiation scenario?
Imagine a tough negotiation over pricing, where a negotiator from a U.S. manufacturing company feels genuinely frustrated by what they perceive as the other party's unreasonable and inflexible demands.
Okay, a tense situation.
Very. However, instead of reacting defensively or angrily, an emotionally agile negotiator would remain calm, actively listen to, understand the reasons behind those demands, perhaps uncovering underlying cost pressures or specific market concerns, and then collaboratively explore creative solutions that might address both parties' needs.
Problem solving, not fighting.
Exactly. A less emotionally agile negotiator, on the other hand, might react with anger, accuse the other party of being unfair, and potentially jeopardize the entire deal by creating an adversarial atmosphere.
So, for a listener who's striving for business success, what's the practical application of cultivating emotional agility in their own negotiations?
It really starts with developing a strong sense of self-awareness, understanding your own emotional triggers and typical responses in stressful situations. Then, consciously practice managing your emotions during negotiations.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It takes practice, definitely. Make a deliberate effort to remain calm and composed, even when things get heated or challenging. Strive to be patient, proactive in finding solutions, practical in your approach, and creative in seeking mutually beneficial outcomes. This cultivated emotional agility will allow you to navigate complex discussions much more effectively, build stronger and more productive long-term business relationships, and ultimately achieve more favorable and sustainable results.
Let's move on to our fifth key area, which sounds very strategic: navigating the critical tipping points. What exactly are these tipping points in the context of a negotiation?
Think of them as the key decision junctures, the pivotal moments in a negotiation, where the choices you make, the concessions you offer, or the demands you stand firm on can significantly alter the trajectory and ultimately the final outcome of the deal.
Make or break moments.
In a way, yes. Recognizing these crucial junctures and managing them effectively is absolutely essential for maximizing the value you obtain and minimizing the chances of future regret.
What are the clear benefits of being acutely aware of and skillfully navigating these critical tipping points as they arise in a negotiation?
First, it allows for more strategic decision-making. Recognizing these pivotal moments enables you to make deliberate choices about when to push harder for your interests, when to be more willing to make concessions, and when to perhaps walk away if necessary.
Knowing when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Kind of like that, yes. Second, it helps in maximizing the value you extract from the negotiation. By effectively managing these points, you can often secure more favorable terms without pushing so aggressively that you risk losing the entire agreement. And third, careful consideration of your decisions at these tipping points significantly reduces the likelihood of looking back after the deal is done and wishing you had handled things differently. No regrets.
And what are the potential pitfalls if you either miss these critical junctures or you mishandle them when they occur?
You could end up making premature concessions, agreeing to terms too quickly at a critical point, and consequently leaving potential value on the table.
Giving away too much too soon.
Exactly. Conversely, you might miss opportunities to advance your own interests by hesitating to act decisively when a tipping point presents itself, leading to stagnation or a less favorable outcome. And perhaps most damaging in the long run, poor handling of these critical moments, like abruptly rejecting a proposal without careful consideration, can seriously harm the relationship with the other party, potentially jeopardizing future collaborations.
So, what are some of the strategies that successful U.S. companies employ to effectively recognize and navigate these critical tipping points in their negotiations?
A key strategy is proactively identifying potential tipping points in advance of the negotiation. They try to anticipate where the key decision-making moments are likely to occur. For example, discussions around price, scope, or timelines, and plan their approach accordingly.
They're planning for the hurdles.
Right. They also often use signals and trial balloons, making tentative suggestions or asking hypothetical questions to subtly gauge the other party's willingness to move at these critical junctures before making any firm commitments themselves.
Testing the waters.
Precisely. And finally, they ensure they clearly and concisely communicate their positions and their reasoning at these key moments, making their stance unambiguous. Clarity is key.
And where do you often see competitors go wrong when it comes to dealing with these crucial decision points in a negotiation?
A major issue is simply being unaware of when these critical junctures are arising. Some negotiators fail to recognize these pivotal moments as they occur, and therefore react passively rather than strategically.
Just letting it happen to them.
Kind of. Others make hasty decisions under pressure at these points, without fully evaluating the long-term implications of their choices. And being ambiguous or unclear in their communication at these critical moments can lead to misunderstandings and missed opportunities to effectively influence the final outcome.
Can you provide a tangible example of a critical tipping point in a typical business negotiation?
Certainly. In a negotiation for a merger or acquisition, the detailed discussion of the target company's valuation is almost always a critical tipping point.
The big number.
Exactly. A U.S. company that understands this will meticulously prepare its valuation, present it strategically with clear justifications, and respond thoughtfully and strategically to the other party's counterarguments and proposals, knowing that the decisions made during this phase will have massive and long-term financial consequences for both sides.
High stakes.
Extremely. A less astute competitor might rush through this crucial discussion, fail to adequately support their valuation, or make significant concessions too quickly without fully understanding the implications.
So for our listener who's aiming for entrepreneurial success, what practical advice can you offer on how they can become more skilled at navigating these critical tipping points in their negotiations?
Develop a keen awareness of where these key decision points are likely to occur in any negotiation you undertake. Before you reach them, take the time to carefully think through your objectives, your absolute limits, and your best alternative options. Your BATNA again.
Know your bottom line.
And your options. When you arrive at these pivotal moments in the discussion, pause, consciously consider your options and the potential ramifications of each choice, and think strategically before making any firm commitments or outright rejections. Learn to discern when it is strategically advantageous to push for more and when it might be wiser to accept a proposal and move forward. Mastering the art of recognizing and effectively navigating these critical tipping points is absolutely essential for maximizing the value you obtain and achieving overall successful outcomes in your business dealings.
Let's move on to our sixth area, which really emphasizes the ongoing nature of negotiation and business relationships. The art of finding agreement and learning from every deal. It's not just about shaking hands and moving on, is it?
Not at all. It's about approaching every negotiation with the primary goal of reaching a mutually acceptable and sustainable agreement, while simultaneously making a conscious effort to extract valuable lessons from each and every negotiation experience, regardless of whether it's perceived as a resounding success or, falls short of your initial expectations. This dual focus on achieving agreement and cultivating continuous learning is what leads to long-term success and a strong, positive reputation in the business world.
What are the key benefits of prioritizing both the act of finding common ground and actively learning from each negotiation you're involved in?
First and foremost, you're significantly more likely to actually achieve your desired outcomes. A genuine focus on finding mutually acceptable solutions naturally increases the chances of reaching a final agreement that works for all parties involved.
Makes sense. Aim for agreement, get agreement.
Generally, yes. Second, it fosters a culture of continuous improvement. By taking the time to reflect on past negotiations, both the wins and the perceived losses, you gain invaluable insights into what strategies were most effective and where you can refine your approach for future deals, leading to ongoing growth as a negotiator.
Getting better each time.
Hopefully. And third, it plays a crucial role in building a strong and positive professional reputation. Negotiators who are known for their ability to find common ground, act with integrity, and learn from their experiences are often highly sought after and respected in their industries, opening doors to future opportunities.
Conversely, what are the potential negative consequences if you don't prioritize finding agreement, or if you fail to take the time to learn from your past negotiation experiences?
You'll likely experience a higher number of impasses and more frequent breakdowns in negotiations simply because you're not actively focused on finding mutually beneficial solutions. Your negotiation skills will likely stagnate over time because you're not actively analyzing and adapting your strategies based on past experiences.
Stuck in a rut.
Pretty much. And critically, you risk damaging your professional reputation. Being perceived as someone who is difficult to work with, unwilling to compromise, or who doesn't learn from their mistakes can severely hinder your ability to build strong business relationships and achieve your long-term goals.
So what specific strategies do successful U.S. companies often employ to really excel at both the art of finding agreement and the discipline of learning from their deals?
They often place a strong emphasis on collaborative negotiation approaches, actively training their teams to seek win-win solutions, and prioritize finding mutually beneficial agreements that address the underlying needs and interests of all parties, rather than just focusing solely on their own gains.
Win-win thinking.
That's the idea. Many also implement formal post-deal analysis processes, where they conduct thorough reviews after significant negotiations to objectively assess the effectiveness of their strategies, identify key lessons learned, both positive and negative, and document those insights for future reference.
Formal debriefs again.
Very important. And finally, they often foster a culture of mentorship and knowledge sharing within their organizations, where more experienced negotiators share their insights, best practices, and lessons learned from past deals with their junior colleagues, promoting organizational learning and continuous improvement.
Passing on the wisdom. And where do you frequently see competitors fall short when it comes to this crucial aspect of finding agreement and learning from their negotiation experiences?
Adopting an overly adversarial or win-lose approach is a common pitfall. When the sole focus is on maximizing their own gains without genuinely considering the other party's needs, it becomes significantly more difficult to find common ground and reach sustainable agreements.
It's all about me.
That attitude rarely works long-term. Another frequent mistake is simply ignoring past negotiation experiences. Some companies fail to analyze their previous deals in any systematic way, thus missing valuable opportunities to learn from both their successes and their failures. And finally, a lack of formal debriefing or feedback processes within their organizations often limits the potential for a collective learning and prevents the organization as a whole from improving its negotiation capabilities over time.
Can you provide a concrete example of how a company might effectively learn from a past negotiation experience?
Imagine a U.S. technology company that has just successfully negotiated a new strategic partnership. Afterwards, instead of just moving on, they might conduct an internal review specifically to analyze which negotiation tactics were most effective in reaching that agreement, what aspects of the negotiation process went particularly well, and also what challenges they encountered and how they were overcome.
Breaking it down.
Exactly. These specific learnings, both the successes and the areas for potential improvement, would then be carefully documented and actively used to inform their strategies and approaches in all future partnership negotiations. A competitor who doesn't take the time for this kind of structured reflection might unfortunately repeat less effective strategies or fail to capitalize on proven successful tactics in their subsequent deals.
So for our listener who's striving for long-term entrepreneurial success, what's the key takeaway message regarding the importance of finding agreement and learning from every deal they make?
Always approach every negotiation with a genuine commitment to finding mutually agreeable solutions that truly address the needs and interests of all parties involved. And just as importantly, make a conscious and consistent effort to reflect on each and every negotiation you undertake, whether it results in a big win or a perceived setback, to identify the key learnings and insights gained from that experience.
Always be learning.
Always. Actively apply these valuable lessons to your future negotiations to continuously refine your skills, make even better deals, and build stronger, more enduring business relationships over the long haul.
Finally, let's delve into the last of our 7 key areas, which is all about the inner game of negotiation, developing the mindset of a negotiation master. What exactly does that entail?
It's about cultivating a specific set of internal qualities, primarily a healthy dose of confidence, coupled with genuine humility and grounded in a realistic understanding of the negotiation landscape that collectively contribute to more effective negotiation outcomes and the development of stronger, more sustainable business relationships. It's the underlying mental framework that guides your approach.
Confidence, humility, realism, a balancing act.
Very much so.
What are the tangible benefits of possessing this kind of balanced and effective negotiation mindset as you enter into business discussions?
Well, genuine confidence allows you to articulate your position clearly and persuasively, thereby increasing your overall influence in the negotiation. True humility fosters a sincere willingness to listen attentively to and genuinely understand the other party's perspective, which is absolutely crucial for building trust and identifying common ground.
Listening again.
Always important. And a sense of realism helps you to set achievable and well-defined goals and to avoid overreaching or making unrealistic demands, ultimately leading to more sustainable and mutually beneficial agreements.
And conversely, what are the potential downsides if you lack this kind of balanced and effective mindset when you approach your negotiations?
A lack of confidence can often lead you to appear weak or unprepared, which can significantly undermine your credibility and overall influence.
Comes across badly.
Definitely. Exhibiting arrogance or a lack of humility can easily alienate the other party, making them less willing to cooperate and potentially damaging the long-term relationship. And setting wildly unrealistic goals, often driven by a lack of realism or a flawed understanding of the situation, can lead to frustration, failed negotiations, and missed opportunities for otherwise achievable agreements.
So how do successful U.S. companies typically work to cultivate this kind of master negotiator mindset within their teams and their overall organizational culture?
Leadership by example plays a critical role. Senior leaders in successful companies often consciously model the desired negotiation mindset, consistently emphasizing confidence in their organization's value proposition, demonstrating humility in their interactions.
Walking the walk.
Exactly, and maintaining a pragmatic, realistic approach to all deal-making processes. Utilizing team-based negotiation strategies can also be beneficial, as bringing together individuals with diverse perspectives and personality traits can help to naturally balance confidence, humility, and realism within the negotiation team.
Strength and diversity.
To an extent, yes. And finally, many companies invest in ongoing professional development programs that are specifically designed to build not just the tactical negotiation skills, but also the holistic mindset of highly effective negotiators, focusing on areas like self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking.
And where do you frequently see competitors fall short when it comes to cultivating this essential mindset for effective negotiation?
Exhibiting arrogance or an attitude of overconfidence is a common issue, which can often alienate the other party and make them less willing to collaborate or find mutually agreeable solutions.
The ego trap.
Can be. On the other hand, a lack of self-belief or a hesitation to assert their own legitimate interests can also be detrimental, leading to suboptimal outcomes. And finally, harboring unrealistic expectations, perhaps driven by ego, wishful thinking, or an incomplete understanding of the market, can frequently lead to disappointment and ultimately to failed negotiations.
Can you give us a final, impactful example of how this well-rounded mindset can really make a significant difference in a critical negotiation scenario?
Consider a seasoned CEO of a promising U.S. startup who is entering into a crucial round of funding negotiations with a group of venture capitalists.
High pressure.
Definitely. If this CEO approaches the discussions with genuine confidence in their company's innovative vision and strong growth potential, but also demonstrates the humility to actively listen and thoughtfully consider the investor's perspectives, concerns, and due diligence findings.
Respectful listening.
Right. All while maintaining a realistic understanding of current market valuations and typical investment terms, they are far more likely to achieve a favorable funding outcome that sets their company up for future success. Conversely, a leader who lacks this balanced mindset, perhaps coming across as either insecure and unsure of their company's value, or arrogant and unwilling to listen to investor feedback, or having wildly unrealistic expectations, well, they will likely face significant challenges and could potentially jeopardize the entire funding round.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the multifaceted art of negotiation. It's clear that truly mastering this crucial skill is an ongoing journey of learning and refinement, but these 7 dynamic principles provide a really fantastic and practical roadmap for our listeners.
Absolutely. And for you, the listener who's committed to entrepreneurial success, remember to actively apply these principles to every negotiation you undertake, big or small. Stay curious, maintain that desire for continuous improvement, and recognize that these skills are absolutely fundamental to achieving your business goals and building lasting success.
And on that note, here's a final thought-provoking question for you to consider. Something that really extends beyond the formal confines of the negotiation table. How can consciously applying even just one of these principles we've discussed today, whether it's embracing unpredictability, actively practicing deep listening, or cultivating that balanced mindset, fundamentally change the outcome of your next important interaction or decision, even in situations that might not traditionally be labeled as a formal negotiation? Think about that, and we'll catch you next time for another insightful deep dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're laser focused on something absolutely fundamental for navigating the world of business, especially if you're, building something: negotiation.
Right.
We've taken a deep dive into some seriously insightful material. Think of it as the distilled wisdom you need, and we've pulled out 7 key areas that can really make a difference in how you approach and, close deals.
That's right. This isn't about abstract theory. It's really about giving you practical insights you can actually use.
Yeah.
We've sifted through the complexities to bring you the core principles that separate effective negotiators, the ones who create value from those who might be, leaving opportunities on the table.
Exactly. So for you, the listener who wants to get smart on this quickly and thoroughly without getting lost in the weeds, we're going to unpack 7 dynamic aspects of negotiation that are crucial for entrepreneurial success. We'll be looking at 1, embracing the unpredictable deal landscape. 2, the power of the learn, adapt, influence cycle. 3, how preparation truly meets real-time awareness.
A big one.
Point 4, cultivating emotional agility for negotiation wins. 5, navigating those critical tipping points. 6, the art of not just finding agreement, but learning from every single deal. And 7, developing the mindset of a negotiation master, ready to get started.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into the first one, embracing the unpredictable deal landscape. What's really interesting here is that no matter how much you prepare, every negotiation has its own twists and turns. Things rarely go exactly according to plan.
Okay, let's dig into that. Beyond the obvious, what's the real advantage of truly accepting that unpredictability is like just part of the negotiation process?
Well, for one, it significantly boosts your ability to adapt. When those inevitable, unexpected issues pop up, you'll be much better equipped to respond effectively, which, often leads to more favorable outcomes. It also helps manage expectations and reduces frustration. If you anticipate that the path might not be straight, you're less likely to be thrown off balance. And perhaps a less obvious benefit is that it can actually fuel creativity. When you're not locked into a rigid plan, you're more open to finding innovative and sometimes surprising solutions.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the pitfalls if someone goes into a negotiation with a completely fixed mindset, not acknowledging that things might deviate?
That's where you can run into trouble. You risk getting stuck, completely fixated on your initial strategy, and unable to pivot when reality doesn't align, potentially leading to a stalemate. You might also miss out on valuable opportunities. By not being open to new information or changing dynamics, you could overlook beneficial alternatives